Welcome to A Fresh Take Culture and Comics. I'm your host, Dan Friedman. We got a fun show for you guys. Um, Obviously, we do a lot of comics content here and pop culture content, but sometimes sports takes center stage in the culture. And when it does, we're going to spend a little time on that. So we're going to do some Super Bowl recap. We're going to do some recap of the NBA trade deadline, which certainly had some fireworks. And we've got some great guests to get into it. So with that in mind, let's bring in some of the crew. We got Buns here. You can find Stringer Buns on Instagram and Twitter. And we got Nick Minix here. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being part of it. I know it was a last-minute scramble for you guys, so I appreciate it. So we'll get into some nuts and bolts of the game a little bit more in a second, but I just wanted to know, because it was something I've been thinking about a little bit. How did you guys watch the game this year? Were you at a group setting? Were you just with family? And how do you prefer to watch the game?
Well, for myself, I watched with a couple of close friends. Usually in the past, I've gotten together with large groups of friends. I think for multiple reasons, that's been a little less sanctimonious, I guess. So, or maybe more sanctimonious. Anyway, but yeah, so I prefer a larger group setting, but this was great. It was nice to have an intimate setting and with a couple of friends who are not nearly as avid football fans as myself. So that kind of actually makes it fun for me. I like to talk about things like that and explain. Not that I'm necessarily the greatest expert, but I do know more.
Yes, you are.
That's thank you. So to me, that's fun. Just talking about all the different ways you can look at things in a football game.
Cool. Buns,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I usually watch it in a group setting. This was a mixed year actually. So we watched the game with the group, did some before the game Valentine's Day stuff, and then after that, after the halftime show, we came back to our house because I have a little kid, and so we wanted to make sure we got him in bed for his bedtime, and then we watched the second half and the end of the game to close out at our house. And so it was kind of that intimate piece. My wife's also from Cincinnati, so we had a personal stake in the game, so we wanted to make sure. Right, I know. Thought we had it there for a minute, but yeah. But that's how we watched it this year.
So I think we were together a couple years ago for the Super Bowl. Remember the San Francisco KC game? I think we watched together.
Yes.
In New Hampshire.
Was that?
New Hampshire. But though obviously for the last 2 years I had a really small crowd, mostly just family. And my first fresh take of the show here is I'm really, and maybe it's me getting older or whatever, I'm really enjoying watching it in smaller circumstances. I concentrate on the game a little bit more. You can kind of follow it at the sort of intensity you want to follow it at. And I don't mind explaining some stuff, but it tends to be the bigger the group, a lot of the chatter is about other things. So I really kind of enjoyed it. I felt like I watched the game the last couple of years with a much closer eye than I have. And I'm starting to think maybe that's the way to go, but
that's see. A great point. I think, there's value in it. I'm always more interested in the game than the hoopla. And I think that's a great way to go. I did find that I enjoyed it a little more.
Yeah, I watched it one year. It was the Beyonce halftime show year, and I was in a large setting, and it just so happened that no one was interested in the game at all. We couldn't get the host to turn up the audio for the game, and so in addition to not being able to have a good eyesight for the TV, I also couldn't hear anything or what the commentators were saying. But then they turned it up for Beyonce in the halftime show, which was hyper annoying. But I find that I like watching them in settings where at least I get to hear the announcers, because although Chris Collinsworth is annoying as an announcer sometimes, they typically have, especially if it's a Romo production, they typically have really good insight, and I like to hear some of that analytic stuff that I miss watching.
Yeah. So to the actual game itself, wondering if what's your top line comment? If you had your sort of biggest takeaway on the whole from the game.
For me,
go ahead.
Well, if you're talking strictly themes about the outcome, it's Cincinnati failed to capitalize on a monumental opportunity to put the Rams away. A team that came into the second half reeling. So I just think it's a big missed opportunity by Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And the Rams also didn't have their legs, it seemed like, because they weren't getting to the pass rush or getting to the quarterback in the first half. And Cincinnati just couldn't make those adjustments that they had in the first half and the second half. I'd say the big takeaway for me is I don't want this to happen, but now Matt Stafford is going to, instead of being, is Matt Stafford a good quarterback or an elite quarterback, they're going to start having conversation is Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
A first ballot Hall of Famer. And I don't want to have those conversations at all. I don't not like Matthew Stafford as a person. I don't not like him as a quarterback. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's elite. I don't think he's ever shown himself to be elite. But now we're going to start having those conversations, and I'm not here for it.
Right.
I would agree with that.
Nature of the beast a little bit. I think, and actually, I'll bring it up a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, I think that's those questions are now like baked into this process, right? That's part of the Super Bowl experience, right? How much it elevates certain players to new levels and things like that. And I'm sure we'll get into it with Cooper Kupp and sort of putting his historic season in context, like him really finishing it out all the way. Even though personally, I think Aaron Donald should have been the MVP, but we can get into that. My top line takeaway, and this is actually Nick, you and I were texting before the game, and I was like, I think it's going to be a Bengals cover and a Rams win. I feel like it's going to be a close game. I think the Rams are a little better, and I'm trying to remember a Super Bowl that I thought went to script as much as this Super Bowl did, right? Like usually the story of the Super Bowl is what's the surprising outlier thing? What player pops off that we couldn't possibly expect it, or what totally different scheme did somebody work out or something? And this basically was most of the guys we thought would do things, did things. The elements of the team's games that we thought that the Rams pass rush, the prolific wide receivers. I mean, other than the Beckham injury, and I guess you could the no call face mask, and then that 3rd and 1 Pirine call, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Like those are like outlier moments, but as a whole, didn't it feel like this was sort of the consensus script?
I would say go ahead.
Go ahead. I would say I thought that the Rams offense, again, I don't think Matthew Stafford's an elite quarterback, but I thought that within the Mcveigh, I'm a genius. I just, I didn't do a good job in Super Bowl I where I'm supposed to be this offensive genius and maybe Todd Gurley's hurt, but I have Jared Goff at quarterback and my offense can't score a lick. I thought that he would have came back in this Super Bowl and been able to do a lot more, but the Rams punted on their first possession. They were really sluggish, I thought, in the first half. They didn't do a lot or enough. And it just seemed like he stuck to the running script or try to stay balanced on the offense a little too long. They were running the ball with everybody, Henderson, Michelle, Akers, and none of them got yards. So I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick, what you were going to say something?
I think, well, for me, what I thought the script would have been, I think the Beckham injury changed. Because to me, the script was, for example, like I think the first half, second half bets are Rams potentially to under, and with a Cincinnati comeback on their horizon in the second half. And I think that the Beckham injury changed things in terms of LA's. Obviously, that instantly reduced them to one legitimate weapon. Because they could get nothing going on the ground, and combine that with the fact that Cincinnati came out with a game plan that was conservative for the sake of keeping LA's pass rush at bay. That I think that's really what did it for keeping Aaron Donald and company. I mean, that and besides for Donald specifically, a lot of double and even occasional triple teams that you saw Cincinnati. I mean, Burrow was getting the ball out quickly. They took one deep shot that went to Chase, which was obviously that worked out well. But that ultimately a lot of quick stuff, and they weren't able to get things going very early on. And I think the combination of that the Chase deep shot really kind of opened things up a little bit. And the Beckham injury, I think, really put the Rams on kind of they were concerned, I guess, I mean, there was legit concern that they weren't going to be able to manufacture offense many other ways. That, to me, the script kind of flipped in the other way, with Cincinnati seemingly in control. And I think the Rams rising up on defense to where it didn't – I honestly, like, I didn't – it was hard to picture. I mean, I was finding myself every series. I'm like, I think Cincinnati needs to commit to running a little more again, not just because they're trying to run out the clock, but because they need to establish something and keep the pass rush at bay. But Cincinnati was the one hunted, and the defense was up to the task for LA. And to me, the script I anticipated being the other way around. And I thought for every, that Cincinnati would have a shot at the end. So for me, that's the only way that I think the script was a little flipped. But yeah, for the sake of, I did expect a Cincinnati cover, and seemed likelier that the Rams would win. They just have more big name players, and they do it on both sides of the ball. But yeah, I think Cincinnati missed opportunities is really what made the second half.
Yeah. Talking about the running backs real quick. So, first of all, I think Mixon's just so underrated. Like, I just think I just think he never gets mentioned when we talk about best backs in the league, and he so clearly is to me. If they gave him the kind of workload that some of the top backs in the league get and feeds them, and they were for periods of time during the season, I think he'd have those super gaudy numbers. But I think you saw it in this game. I mean, the Rams rush defense is pretty solid, and Mixon grinded,
Yeah.
In contrast, and I don't want to dive, I know we could fall down a fantasy hole, and I don't want to do that too far, but if you've been holding on to Akers in Dynasty, hoping, I mean, you got to be a little spooked right now. He looked rough. I mean, he really looked rough.
Yeah.
Well,
he did look.
Sorry, Buns, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, he looked rough. I thought that the last two games he's looked better. He is coming off an Achilles. That's tough. He is trying to find his way in the offense. That's also tough, especially with how pass happy they've become later in the season. And so I think if you already holding him, I wouldn't trade now just because the value probably after the Super Bowl is probably down. But I would also say he's probably going to be the primary back in that offense. And if you think that with the stuff Henderson was doing maybe 2 years ago, with a better quarterback, hey, go ahead and trade. Since he's got his values down, I'd probably trade for him now. But I don't know. Yeah, he didn't look good. He didn't play good. They didn't incorporate him enough into the passing game when they were out of options. And so that's got to worry you a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's a good offseason target because hopefully that price is low. Mm-hmm. And I'm completely on board. I mean, I would love to see what Joe Mixon does with even a mid-tier run blocking line, or an upper echelon line would be disgusting.
That's got to be all since he does this offseason, right? Like literally everything they do has to be about offensive line, right?
Yes, that, and they could use
3 draft picks and maybe a free agent.
Yeah. I think they have $60 million of cap space. Right?
Yeah, they could use another defensive playmaker, a good corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just highlighted 2 Buckeyes. Isaiah Prince, whipping boy, got whipped. And then Eli Apple, I don't know what he was doing on that game-winning touchdown. No idea. You knew the ball had to go to somebody. If you're going to pick somebody, I'm picking Cooper Kupp, the Triple Crown winner. And he gave him outside, had inside leverage, and then he didn't anticipate outside fade. It was just, I don't know. We don't teach people how to play cornerback like that at Ohio State. So, I don't know.
No, we'll say I did hear some analysis, and I think that's fair because he did shade him to this. I mean, typically that's what the Rams run. They run slant there a lot, and I think tendency I can understand it, but bottom line is you got to know. I mean, I think if anything, you got to be aware that the ball is coming that way. And I don't think he was. Yeah.
Where else would it be going?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And in worst case, if you're like, oh, they play slant, then have him play outside a line, and then either bring a backer or safety down to take away the slant, a la what's that team? The Patriots, where Malcolm Butler jumps that slant route. Have somebody there keying a slant, and then have Eli Apple playing the fade. They should have been bracketing Cooper Kupp once Odell went out the game anyway. So I don't know what they were doing there.
And large times they were, but that play, they should have had someone to take away the inside leverage for Apple so that he could play him straight up. I agree.
Yeah.
Let's just somebody posed like, is Kupp just that good, or is Apple playing that bad? And like, I think the answer is yes.
It's both.
You know,
Both.
yeah. And Apple talked a lot. Apple was talking a lot the last couple of weeks too. You know, so I'm going to talk about Burrow a little bit, and the Bengals at large, before we pivot back to kind of what comes next with the Rams. So, you know, from a big picture narrative storyline, I was thinking about where we were at, you know, a couple of years ago with what the sort of trajectory of Mahomes was, and how it almost felt fait accompli that this was, and of course he's great. That's not the conversation, right? But that he was the dominant, straight to path, top 10, you know, QB of this generation. And he was about to go to 3 straight Super Bowls. It looked like a couple of weeks, you know, at halftime, just a couple of weeks ago. You know, we were going to be off to the races, right? Burrow, with this really pretty incredible year, especially coming back the way that he did, and really ahead of schedule, right? Making it there, had that sort of chalice placed in front of him as well, and then didn't get this complete. All of a sudden, the AFC is just loaded with great young QBs. And, you know, neither one of these teams, I think we can agree with this, neither one of these teams felt like a dominant, great, like, you know, there were 10 teams that could have won it this year on any given day, right? Like that was definitely a feeling. So when you got Josh Allen and Mahomes and Burrow and Urban, and depending, you know, I'm a Jackson guy, but if you don't believe in Lamar, whatever. Like, point is,
Lamar Jackson belongs in that conversation still. Yeah,
I think he belongs in the conversation at least, right? So, you know, those guys are going to be going through each other now for years. So I wonder. I just think it's interesting to think about kind of like these shots. While they seem like, oh well, you got Jamar Chase and you've got Burrow, and it'll just come back and come back. I don't know. Marino got there real early, and
yeah,
that was it, you know?
Yeah, and so he had some other good quarterbacks to contend with, but not this many.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and they're all in one conference.
I mean, to me, so you know, fill me in if you know. I mean, one of the things I'll be interested to see is, you know, prior to the last 2 years, Cincinnati didn't run their organization well, and I mean, this is, you know, this is far beyond a generational issue for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, if you saw Mike Brown accepting the AFC Championship trophy, he was clearly bewildered. And I mean, I think
that's fair.
Not that they don't have pieces in place to continue to build this, but are they going to continue to get ownership and organizational support to build it the way that they want? Is there going to be an issue in a year or two with, you know, what kind of long-term commitment they have for Joe Burrow? I don't know or anything. I'm just saying that you don't know that how this is going to play out, because they do have some really exciting pieces. And, you know, if they were somewhere else in certain other organizations, you would be very confident that this is going to continue. But you don't know what kind of disputes are going to come up down the road that prevent that from happening. But yes, the AFC overall is really, the NFC has a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are historically cheap. They are in Cincinnati, Ohio, on the river. And for whatever reason, they failed to invest in an indoor practice facility. I don't know why. It gets snow. Why would you have these 100?
I think you answered that question.
But it's like, why would you have these $100 million guys practicing on ice? It doesn't make sense. And so I don't see a way that they don't invest in Burrow. So whenever it's time to give him his $250 million, whatever million contract, he's going to get it. They paid Chad. They paid Carson. They even paid Andy Dalton. So they're going to pay for their quarterback. But the question is, like you said, are they going to invest in the pieces to surround them? So we'll see if they got $60 million. Part of that's, again, they're cheap. What are they going to do to address the issues that they have on defense and on O-line? And if they spend, then we'll know that they're serious. And if it looks like they got the same O-line as last year that got him to tear his knee up, that tore his knee up at the end of this game.
Listen, I think, again, storylines coming out of this, I find that the Bengals made it this far with that offensive line amazing. I mean, it's really amazing.
71 sacks in 21 games.
It defies everything all the conventional wisdom of how you win games. Like, record-setting sack totals every game. It's kind of unheard of, and I think it does speak to his specialness. I mean, I think that gets part of that story as well. But man, oh man, that's crazy.
I think, I mean, it's hard to ignore how Cincinnati definitely took advantage of some unique circumstances during their playoff run. I mean, you faced Las Vegas in the wild card round. I'm saying that's a gimme, but they certainly tended to play up to the level of competition. They had a great game plan against Tennessee, but Tennessee also shot themselves in the foot quite a bit. I think they were too reliant on Derrick Henry in that game for just coming back after 3 to 4 months of absence to give him 20 plus carries. Not to say that they shouldn't have used him. I certainly think they should have, but and
Foreman looked like he was clearly better back.
Yeah, he was explosive in that game. If they had split that up a little bit,
if Tannehill wasn't Tannehill,
at least for that game,
right?
I mean, because they sacked Joe Burrow 9 times in that game, and Cincinnati still came in on top. That's just not something. I mean, Tennessee's defense overall played well, and then. Same thing, Kansas City. I mean, they shot themselves in the foot quite a number of times in the second half. Not to say that Cincinnati didn't play well, and I think they really changed their defensive scheme in the second half, or their approach that really, for some reason, flummoxed Mahomes. I mean, he just looked he looked bewildered.
That's something that Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs got to do, because they switched to a cover 3 or high safety look. And in the games during the season this year where Kansas City was struggling, all those teams were playing that cover 3 look. And I mean, I think Tyreek Hill's a really good receiver. Kelsey is one of the best to ever do it. They shouldn't have drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round when you had all that other talent on the board. It makes zero sense to me. J.K. Dobbins, I could have sworn he was going there. But they have issues as well. To go on what you were saying, Dan, about are they going to continue to run? I think they are, just because they have a really good coach and they have more pieces in place. But I think they need a legit number 2 receiver or legit 1 receiver to take over for Hill. But I think once you take him out the game and then you just let Kelsey do his thing, it became easier for Cincinnati to slow down Kansas City for whatever reason. He needs to figure that out. He can't have this one defense slowing him down. He's supposed to be the man. Are we
sure that Mahomes wasn't like concussed though in that game? Because there was some stuff that was scheming, and then there's stuff where he was just missing dudes, missing them.
Yeah, there was something off. I mean,
just hitting, throwing people's feet, man. I mean, that's just not him.
Yeah, I think there was definitely something off in the second half, and I'm not gonna try to speculate on what that was, but or that we may ever hear what that was. Not until there's a book 25 or 30 years from now. But
so, okay.
No, that's it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Rams for a couple minutes, and then got a couple other things I want to hit. But so I think something that's fascinating is the amount of different stories that you heard right before, even during and right after the game. Are stories you don't hear about Super Bowl teams very often, right? You've got Aaron, the storyline bubbling up that Aaron Donald might retire. You've got there was even McVeigh saying there were some rumors there, which I think was like taking his context of saying he didn't want to be coaching until he's 60 out of context. Yeah. But that was a conversation. You had yeah, the things that bubble up about Stafford are sort of like what's next in his career arc. You've got Odell with this. I feel so bad for Odell, but that kind of an injury,
hitting free agency.
He's gonna be 30 next year, right? So he's gonna be a 30-year-old coming off a second ACL, probably, right? Did they officially say it's an ACL?
They fear, but they haven't confirmed it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm happy that he was able to contribute so dramatically in the first half and get his ring, but like, oof. And sort of like outlier seasons from it's interesting. It feels usually like, wow, they did it and they'll be great and they'll be a good team, and they have a little grace period, but it sort of feels like there's a lot of like question marks immediately following this team. Did that feel different to you this year?
I mean, stuff about Scott McVeigh, I thought that was super interesting. They're like, he's going to retire and go host Monday Night Football. That's a dream gig, and then he can make $20 million a year doing that, and then come back and coach after that for whichever team he wants and whatever situation he wants. Like, y'all just brought a championship to LA. You mortgaged the future with all your draft picks. Why don't you coach? Let this ride out for a couple of years, and then go do Monday Night Football. But yeah, all these stories are just super. I'm really excited for Odell. I didn't want them to win, but I'm happy for him to show that he's still a top tier receiver when he's given a shot. Now he's got the tag that he's injury prone, though, unfortunately. That was just a bad situation. But yeah, this is definitely different for how young the pieces are to have all these different retirement storylines coming out of it. And Michelle Tafoya is retiring from sportscasting, so it's just another thing. But she's not with the Rams. But yeah, it's just super interesting.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, you can't help but wonder. I don't think that would be the case with Donald, but you can't help but wonder if these things come out because they're trying to leverage a contract situation. I really don't think that's where those things are coming from, but there's always that potential.
Right.
And it may not even come directly from them, or that's not the way it starts out. But it's interesting. I think to me, the Rams, like, nobody picks, or it's, I guess, like a lot. I was thinking like a lot of recent champs. I mean, KC, Tampa Bay, New England. Typically, like, you think about these teams and you're like, I don't see why they can't run it back. And the Rams have that opposite feel. And like, I thought that even before all these things were coming about. So like, I mean, number of reasons for like what you talked about. It could have been any number of 8 to 10 teams this year that won it, and you wouldn't be shocked. And the Rams, I mean, they always feel, because they're mortgaging in the future for that. And credit due, like, I didn't think it was a terrible approach. I mean, you're constantly putting yourself in a conversation.
Yeah.
But it also feels like a bit of a mercenary team. So there's and it's very tough team
up there.
We've already seen. I mean, they had the Robert Woods injury, and until they acquired Beckham, we weren't necessarily considering them dangerous enough. So it only takes one or two serious injuries to derail what it's going to look like for the Rams. So they're not to me, like, I mean, where they are considered for odds down the list. That I want to say they were like 6th or 7th, and I'm like, yeah, that seems about right. Maybe even lower. Like, it takes a lot of good fortune to get to the Super Bowl too. So. I mean, if Aaron Donald retires, no way, it's not happening. I don't think it's likely either.
Best player in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's easily.
Well, and let me actually, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. As a person who grew up about 10, 15 minutes from Giant Stadium, or what was Giant Stadium, and a child of the 80s that I am, Aaron Donald is the best football player in the league right now, in my opinion. He's not Lawrence Taylor, and stop.
Okay. Stop. I thought you were about to make that statement. I'm like,
I mean, it's okay.
This?
Like, the only people saying that are people that didn't watch Lawrence Taylor play. Stop. And I love Aaron Donald.
When they were starting to compare Micah Parsons to Lawrence Taylor, I was losing. So I mean, so Aaron Donald is definitely probably the greatest defensive tackle we've ever seen play. And people we're trying to compare him and Warren Sapp. I'm like, Warren Sapp's not even in the conversation anymore.
And he was great.
7 All-Pros, right? And he was great. Should have probably got the MVP. Finished the game with the pass rush after they started punching his face on the sideline when he got that push out of bounds sack on Burrow. It's like something flipped in him, and he started going crazy, and they couldn't keep him out the backfield.
My wife, who doesn't watch much football, but will tune in for the Super Bowl, like just about every American, said just like moments after, I was like, they should not have messed with him. That is the most astute. Right. That's all the analysis you needed.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not have messed with him. Yeah,
that was his first sack, and then he was literally in the backfield the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's the thing is he only had one more sack, but he was blowing every other play up. Yeah,
for sure. So two questions, and I think we're gonna get into more general sport talk, and then pivot into NBA. Question one, not about these two teams. What's the off-season storyline that you are most intrigued by, you find most compelling, you think will have the greatest impact? Because there's a lot of them.
Oh, man.
Do you want me to start?
A quick one.
Oh, you got it? Go for it.
A quick one for me is the Deshaun Watson. I'm from Houston, so I'm a Texans fan. Is this Deshaun Watson stuff going to get resolved? Is he going to get traded? Where is he going to go? Because he's kind of like Joe Burrow in that sense, where he was able to elevate our Texans to be a playoff team, and we weren't that good. So if he goes to an actual team that's got a solid defense or good offense, I think he can elevate and make them a contender as well, especially
if he's allowed to
maybe
play.
not in the AFC, right? If he's allowed to play. So that's one of the ones that's high on my radar.
Yeah.
That's just to go back. Sorry, just to go back to if Deshaun Watson is a QB in 2022 and he stays in the AFC,
if he goes to Denver.
That's just it. Just
Denver,
makes the AFC even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're talking 6 top.
It would make the AFC West crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and in all fairness,
or KC,
and that's KC, even the Burrow point. Like, just look at Cincy's division. Like, that division is rough, man. And who knows? We'll see what happens with the Steelers, but
right?
Maybe somebody goes there too. So, I would add to Watson specifically. I think that we've got a shot at some unprecedented QB carousel this offseason, because there's really not. I mean, I'm sure by draft day people will have moved quarterbacks way up their boards, but and somebody will pop, right? Like, somebody will pop, but broadly speaking, you're not finding a bunch of starting quarterbacks in this draft, right? We had retirements from Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, right? And you've got Aaron Rodgers, Russ Wilson, maybe Watson. Who knows what happens with some of the the Jimmy G, obviously, different caliber, but can be a hold the fort starter type of player. I think we could have some mass movement in a way that we rarely see.
I am going to. I think a year ago I kept thinking that as well. I'm not going to be surprised. I mean, not just because Green Bay did come out and say that they're going to do what they can to keep Rodgers, but I think I think that they are. I mean, if I had to bet, I would definitely bet that Rodgers is in Green Bay for another year. I think he's amenable to that, much more so than he was coming into the season. And the likelihood that's if he wants to play with Devontae Adams, and he's going to have to understand that if he wants to do that, I mean, that's
are they going to spend half the cap on those two guys?
Well, I mean, they're not going to get a deal done with Adams. I don't foresee that, but they'll definitely franchise him. And I mean, that's at least going to let them run it back. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of unfinished business. They have a lot of things to address. It's just I still thought they were a pretender, despite the fact that they were the number 1 seed. Not that
everyone was a pretender, though. That's my argument about this year.
I don't disagree with that. Both number 1 seeds were total failures in terms of their standing. But I think just that there's something missing in Green Bay that that they don't resolve personnel wise and scheme wise, and they don't go for it. So I mean, because they have a lot of talent on offense, then they're just missing something on defense to me. And I think
I thought that should have been in that Odell sweepstakes. I mean, obviously, I don't even know if they were interviewing him. I mean, it didn't sound like it when he was actually on the market. But maybe. But I to your point, they're missing another offensive piece for when Devontae isn't doing Devontae stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The running backs, I think the running backs are fine. I think the tight end could maybe be better. But on defense, I don't like who is their Charles Woodson?
Right.
Who is their Reggie White? Who is their Clay Matthews? I don't know who's on defense that's saying, hey, we've got an elite, not even elite defense. We have a top 7, top 8 defense. I don't see that in Green Bay. And so every time they make the playoffs, if Rodgers isn't operating like the cyborg, then they're not gonna move far. And so yeah, I don't know. I do think he's coming back. That MVP speech was very interesting and heartwarming. You know, giving props to LaFleur 2 out of 3 seasons. He's on that stage taking that award. So I don't know. It would have to be, what does Green Bay want to do with Jordan Love? Like, do they want to just, hey, we got a sure thing right here, or do we want to waste the first round draft pick? Because I mean, it looks bad. Every year that Rodgers plays in Green Bay, it just looks bad. Should have drafted a receiver or something.
Definitely should have.
Yeah. So I'm gonna then finish with this, and we'll pivot over. The NFL, on the whole, is still sort of the highest rated sport in the U.S. It's the Super Bowl, I think, more than ever, is a national holiday more than it is a necessarily celebration of the sport, in my opinion. And I think it continues to kind of hold that place. My growing thought is the gap and dominance that holds is going to start shrinking here. I think that as certainly in younger generations, soccer, football, non-American football grows in popularity, as the sort of like the monolithic hold of sports in culture is shifting a little bit. I wonder how much that really it really kind of fully goes into like, yeah, that's America. Like, it's Thanksgiving, it's the Super Bowl, I wonder what you guys think about that as sort of like the big game is progressively less and less the big game, and more like that day we get together and eat and watch some stuff.
That's an interesting question. I've been thinking about that. I mean, it's interesting you brought that up when we were going to talk about that before. I think that's going to be, well, to me, it's going to be a slow change. Like, I think it's going to be one of those things where you just like one day you're watching like this, you're like planning your Super Bowl get together, and you're just like, this is not the same. It's not the same as it used to be. To me, it's a very slow change. I mean, a lot of things in society kind of move quickly these days, but
World Series was king when I was a kid.
Yeah. That is even I guess same for me. I think when did the Super Bowl kind of take? Probably the 90s is when it kind of seemed to take precedence.
Probably after the lockout or the strike lockout.
Yeah, 94 was that 94?
Yeah.
And it was, I think football was already moving in that direction and just accelerated it. But I think the NFL is doing it's doing one of those American business model things for somebody who has for a business that has not learned entirely to adapt to a different way people consume things. They're clinging to ways to hang on to their audience, but it's so massive that it's going to allow them to kind of sustain that dominance. But like you said, I mean, to me, it's going to be a slow dwindle, and I think the influx of gambling legalization is going to help them do things like that in terms of, at least in terms of the economy, but the economy of attention, because there's going to be a lot. But it might be more that they have people who are all consumed and they have more dedication as opposed to, the past business model has been they're going to maybe slowly lose those the people on the fringes. It's strictly a social interest or casual interest. And maybe that slowly dwindles, but there's always going to be a large faction of society of the society who's just totally invested in football. But I think it's going to be an interesting evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? Because you have all these states where football is king: Texas, Georgia, Ohio,
Florida,
California, Florida, Pennsylvania. So football's king at that age. Then you go to a college, and football's king at the college level, where they're almost trying to make this, similar NFL model with the way the college football playoff is set up and how they're trying to grow that entity. And if it stays with ESPN, then maybe it doesn't grow. But if they're able to, hold off the contract and split it up like the NFL does, then that probably helps it grow further. But I think to your point, the gambling, the fantasy football, there's a person in the LPGA. They said that if we could get shot track and TrackMan in our game, then that would make it easier for people to track stats, which would help us do fantasy, and fantasy brings more people in as spectators and also increases up the folks' engagement in betting. And I think that it's that betting piece that we haven't fully, or they haven't fully explored yet. That's just getting, I have DraftKings, FanDuel, Prize Picks on my phone, and I'm better learning more about how to do Caesars and all the money line and stuff. So I just bet the spread, and I thought that since he would cover.
You're speaking my love language.
But I think that's what the NFL, if they want to take it to the next level, they need to. They're in Vegas now, so they need to start embracing that more fully. But I think with more sports, there's just going to be more eyeballs, and with more devices, they're taking your attention away. I don't know if football drops off. I just think in terms of sport, I think there are going to be other things that people want to do where they start getting out the house more. They start being in the metaverse more. So maybe even coming up with some way where they can watch the football game in the metaverse, which will be weird, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's true. If they figure that out, I think, I guess I'm just curious, and I don't know, I would not even begin to speculate as if I'm some kind of social scientist on this, but the NFL has become acutely aware in the last decade or so, how youth participation has affected their long-term outlook.
Mm-hmm.
And, largely that's populating the league. But it also, if you play as a kid, you tend to hang on to interest and things like that. So to me, that's just an interesting, how does that turn out? I don't know, because as we evolve as humans, as we become a global society, and as there are more things to distract us, I always wonder if it's the casual fan that's going to be lured away, and that's what they've really focused at the same time in the past decade or two to really lure the casual fan. Mm-hmm. Everybody's doing it. There's a lot of cross industry and cross entertainment promotion and things like that. Eventually, does that lose out? I don't know. I think football is kind of the sport that is it's all for the popular kids in high school, right? So. I'm just curious, if as participation dwindles, what does that translate to down the road? That's just kind of what is made me very curious about it.
Well, I think there's a lot of fruit there to discuss further. Maybe we'll have a whole separate kind of episode on just that topic so we can go deeper. Nicholas, I want to thank you for your time. We're going to say goodnight to you. Maybe Matt Stafford will wave by again. I don't know. But thanks so much, man. And I would like to bring in another guest who's been very, very patient. Josh, welcome in. Thank you, buddy. I know we ran long on the first half.
That's all right, Dan. Hey, I just got a question for Buns. Did you think the Bengals were going to win with 4 or 5 OSU starters out there? Is that really something you think's going to happen?
I usually root for the team that's got the most Buckeyes on it, and more times than not, I usually win. I rooted for the Saints one year. I'm like, yeah, they've got more Ohio State players on there, and they came out and won. I was like, yes, go Saints. Yeah.
Josh, that LT take was for you, buddy.
Oh man, I love the league it's like a PG-13 league now. Like, it's just like, it's like when LT played, it was hard R. This is like PG-13.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Aaron Donald doesn't do nearly enough cocaine, I think. I assume, allegedly. I don't know.
And that's not the worst thing you could say about LT.
Right. No, it really isn't. It really isn't. All right, so let's get into some NBA talk, which is a little less. What are the interesting storyline? Whatever. A lot of concrete action happened. We're in season, about to hit All-Star break, etc. We had our trade deadline. There a year where there actually were some fireworks at the trade deadline, which doesn't always happen. But I think we should start with the biggest trade. I think we all know what that is. Kristaps Porzingis is a wizard. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
he is.
No, that's sure.
No, let's start at the very top. So the 76ers and Nets, the Harden Simmons deal, everybody knows about it. So am I crazy that my main takeaway is the Milwaukee Bucks won the trade deadline?
Well, yes, except they're getting run out of the building by the Trailblazers tonight, which is,
Like, yeah, I'm in Portland. I mean, that team's epic.
They're doing it for you. I think Milwaukee did do well, but it's really amazing how well Simmons, Morey, Harden, they all won. They all in some way got what they wanted.
No. It was a winning trade. I absolutely. No, go on. Sorry.
And Doc got to trade his son-in-law, which is always a win.
Right. I think I agree that there were win-win trades. I just feel like, I actually love what the Nets did as far as opening their window. I think Simmons, for what his flaws are, his strengths are perfect complements to that team, but they're not like flipping a switch. There's too many things that would have to go right for that team to win a championship this year. And I think Harden's in rougher shape. Everyone's like, oh, he's not injured anymore. No, he is, and they're going to have to make a lot of adjustments, those two guys playing together. And in the meantime, the Bucks are just the Bucks and added Serge, who is exactly what they needed to add, just on the fringe. Don't change anything. No big mix-up. Giannis did that thing where he climbed that mountain, and we've seen it with the NBA guys, right? Once you climb that mountain, you know how to do it. It tends to open the floodgates. I'm going to be really surprised if the Bucks are not in the finals again, barring a Giannis injury.
And even last year, he had one.
Right.
Came back.
Right. I mean, well, and if so what do you think about the Simmons fit, guys? What do you think about the Simmons fit on the Nets? I
like the fit. The fit on the Nets. I don't know if he's mentally able or ready yet. I don't know if he's in shape because he's been playing pickup games at the local Y and the NBA is different. So, but I like him whenever he's able to get in shape. I like him, like you were saying, he fits. He goes from needing to be a scorer, shooter, facilitator, everything, a number 2 or a 1 to being the clear number 3, maybe even the 4 option. He doesn't have to score. I don't know how they're going to incorporate him at the end of games because yes, we like your defense. Yes, we like your facilitation, but no, we don't want you to get fouled. Or have you in this time off learn how to shoot free throws? If he's able to shoot 75% from the free throw line, perfect. I don't think they're going to win the championship because KD's on a bum knee and Kyrie can't play in home games. But I do like him in that situation a lot more than I like Harden. But yes, they went from scary number 1 no matter what to last year and now this year. We don't know if the Nets are ever going to win a championship.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. They played 16 games over the last year and a half together, those 3 guys, Harden, Irving and Durant. I think Simmons has a real opportunity to, given he's in shape, given he's got his head together, I think he's got a real opportunity because he's going to be able to play center, essentially, right? And that's really him by the basket is where he's going to be best. He couldn't do that in Philly for obvious reasons with Embiid. So I think there's a real chance of him being unlocked in a way that we haven't been able to see him yet. On the flip side, Steve Nash is cursed, right? I don't know, man. You know, I don't know
He
why.
seems like such a nice guy.
I loved him on Santa Clara, you know, back in the day. I loved him on the Mavs. I loved him on the Suns. Didn't love him on the Lakers, but I don't know. It's tough. He's had a tough stretch.
Why is Harden getting more flack than Kyrie in this situation? Like it just seems like is it like we just accept that Kyrie's got his issues and we just kind of like whatever, that's Kyrie, and we want Harden to be. To me it seems like if Kyrie was playing, Harden would be in Brooklyn and we'd be fine.
No, so there was a report that came out that Kyrie continued to beat Harden in one-on-ones in practice, and it kind of demoralized him.
No,
and he was
where's
staging
this?
one of the locker room. I'll send it to you.
I know. I saw the stage thing.
Okay.
I saw the stage thing.
I'll send you the one about him beating him in one-on-ones.
Oh my god, I love, even if that's not true, I want that story. That's a great
awesome.
story.
Here's the thing with Harden, and again, I'm from Houston, so I'm intimately aware of Harden and the things that he does really well, as well as all the issues. Harden likes strip clubs, loves strip clubs. Harden loves being a celebrity. He loves winning. He does not necessarily love the hard work it takes.
Mm-hmm.
He played with Dwight Howard, Russ, CP3, and right after CP3 got traded, Russ comes in, and CP3 runs a tight ship. He wants everyone to play hard, give 100%, do all those things. Right after CP3 got traded, Russ comes in. He's like, "Why are we canceling practice?" Like, well, we don't practice if James doesn't want to practice. Russ was astonished, and that's his boy. Mm-hmm. So then you go to the Nets, and with all of Kyrie's misgivings and faults, one thing that you know about Kyrie, he's going to give you 100% playing basketball. He has never not shown up playing basketball. Harden, he has an excuse. Okay, maybe, I mean, his hamstring's legit injured, but he came in out of shape. Does he care? Is he ready? Does he want to play basketball? Is this a good strip club city? Harden doesn't care. He wants to win. And then he just forced himself out of Houston. He just forced himself out of Brooklyn. You were an MVP, and you were talking noise about Giannis and saying that he didn't have enough skill to play basketball or be an MVP. And the dude won a championship. The reason why people don't like Harden or giving him more flack is because of that kind of guy. He's got all this offensive talent. Obviously, with the new rules, he's not getting as much to the free throw line, and then also you got those videos of him never playing defense. So he's not giving the game what he needs to give the game, and you can't disrespect the game.
Yeah, I think Irving gets a pass in some ways because he is perceived to be doing what he believes. It's a matter of principle in some way for Kyrie Irving, and there is a degree of empathy and respect that people have for that. Harden, he's blown his way out of like 2 teams in 18 months it feels like, and
just you're a Celtics fan.
I absolutely.
How did the Kyrie Celtics period go? I mean, talking about blowing yourself out
at best.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. This isn't apologizing for Harden or like making excuses for Harden. I'm so confused as to why there isn't. And I mean, maybe you're making really valid points, and maybe that I do think it's true to what he thinks and believes. He is taking principled stance, but if it was like, there are many people taking that similar principled stance that we think are ridiculous, right? I mean,
yeah. Fair.
And if winning, and the thing is, if winning's what he's about and wants to make it happen, well, there's a real easy way to up those chances. Should we get this vaccine so he can play?
Yeah, true. But Irving has also won, right? Mm-hmm. Irving's hit one of the biggest shots post Ray Allen in the league.
That is not in question. Agreed.
Right, and Harden, sat on the bench while Josh Smith was lighting it up.
Right. Down from
oh my God. And that he has not a good run of playoff basketball, and he's gotten partnered with the coach, Doc Rivers, former Celtic coach. Love Doc, but he's getting partnered with a coach who's blown more 3-1 leads in the playoffs than any coach in history. So,
and I think
I'm
Embiid gets a little bit of a
about
skate on some big games. So
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think Embiid has shrunk in some moments. I mean, I understand that that's not the most recent history, but and I saw the Bucks and Sixers play live 2 seasons ago. Like Giannis took it right at Embiid and like ate him up, and Giannis took it right at Ben, and Ben wanted no part of it. So like Ben can play center for that team, but that's not going to work. You know what I mean? I think it was the right move for both of those teams. I just can't get past this idea, which is like, okay, they got into better situations. The best team in the East is still the team that's got the crown, you know?
Yeah, the best teams in the East is still Milwaukee, and you could very easily argue that Miami, who follows, like the Rams kind of follow, going back to football for a second, the Rams kind of follow the Miami template. They, good, nice, warm weather. People want to come play. We don't care about draft picks. We're going to go get the guy to win now. We'll trade all our draft picks. They're doing that. I think those two teams are by far the two best teams when healthy, right? I'm a Celtics fan. We've won 8 in a row or something. It's pretty cool. I don't expect this to be in the finals, but it's pretty cool.
No, the East is interesting, at least, but I don't. Anyway, so let's flip conferences onto the West. So I could say something similar to what I said about the Bucks, which is like I'm pretty sure that like the Suns and the Warriors won the West by not doing very much. Right? Just adding I don't know if the Warriors did anything. I think the Suns added a backup point guard. Great.
The Suns added Torrey Craig and Aaron Holiday. So, two guys who probably score about 6 points each a game on, on Indiana, but they're upgrades, right?
Yeah,
they're like
fringe,
they're pros.
Fringe upgrades, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else in the West worth talking about, really? Because it's not the Lakers.
Really? No, it's not the Lakers.
It's not.
Really not the Lakers.
No, it's not.
The Lakers had it, and then they gave it away, and everyone saw that.
What do you mean?
I'm so mad at the Lakers. So they were going into the offseason. You've got the hometown kid who wants to come play for you. All you got to do is make the offer. You have a trade that is more or less agreed to. You can come bring in shooting. LeBron is the leader. He can pass. He can shoot. He can score. He's 37. All you need is to surround him with more shooters and then maybe find a healthy center power forward person because AD is going to get healthy. You still have Kuzma. You have draft picks. You decide to trade for the other LA kid who can't shoot. He needs the ball, and he's turnover prone. Now, DeMar DeRozan looks like an MVP candidate, and you could have had him in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they could have had Kyle Lowry last year if they were willing to give up THT, right? That's like that's rough, man. That's rough.
So
do you think
they're not a playoff team? They're not going to be a playoff team. I mean, they're going to be in the playoffs, but they're not contenders.
They're not a playoff team.
You need to trade AD. You need to trade AD. That's what you need to do.
So here's my ridiculously hot take on the whole Laker thing.
Do it.
I think AD is the one to blame about this season. I don't think it's Westbrook. I don't think it's LeBron. I think it's AD. AD is the player who's in his prime. He should be a top 3 player in the league. He should be dominant. He should be destroying people. I mean, the man's as big as a tree. He's gifted. He's talented, but
he knows what it takes to win. He's seen it.
I think so.
I mean, he's seen it. I don't mean he knows it like it's in his being. I mean, he's witnessed the process of winning.
He can't bring you there, but if he's around some people, he won't mess it up.
Fair, but he should be the guy who's gonna rip it from you at this point.
Yeah, no. I agree. I was saying that to support your point, meaning like you would think that would be part of the case of why, right? Like the reason that AD was the guy that they got in the first place is it looked like we were getting ready for it to be AD's league anyway, right? Like it looked like this is the next great torchbearer, and LeBron would be able to pull back a little bit, let him take more, pull back a little bit, let me hang out till Bronny gets here, right? Right, which is the worst kept secret in the history of the NBA. And yeah, I agree. I mean, that's fair analysis. I mean, I don't blame Russ. I mean, the funniest thing is blaming Westbrook. Like, it's not that I think he's been good or anything like that, but it's just like he wasn't going to be. There was no scenario where Russ was going to show up and be what the Lakers needed. He, on top of everything else, I can't think of a player whose heights were more predicated on their explosiveness in recent years, and that's dwindling already. He never was a great decision maker. That was never part of his player profile, right? So when he loses the athleticism, how's that going to age well? It's just going to get worse because he's going to have visions of what he thinks he can do. Then he's going to lose confidence. His uber confidence goes away. Now, what do you have with Russ? Russ is literally a detriment at every turn once you get to that place.
Yeah, and I think, the Lakers went out in the first round last year, and we all thought it was maybe because of injuries. And, I think possibly, but also Phoenix is a really strong team. So why did we, other than it's the Lakers, have, sky high expectations for this year? I mean, it's the Lakers and LeBron.
It's LeBron. But it's not because it's the Lakers. It's LeBron.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
It doesn't mean it's right. Go-to. Right.
Yeah.
And you just expect him to do enough because he's that guy.
And maybe he just
coaching
can't
be damned. AD.
That guy.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, whatever age he is, he shouldn't be expected to, he's a modern marvel. He can't do what he did 7 years ago.
Yeah. What do you guys, this isn't a trade deadline or anything, but like, this has been coming up a little bit. I think it's an interesting question, which is with CP3, where we thought essentially he was wrapping it up and yet he's, not quite what he was, but still balling. With LeBron, again, not quite what he was, but whatever. I'll take LeBron. You know what I mean? I don't have any problem with players that have this much mileage at this age. Are we entering a new era of what we have to think about when we think about the longevity of great players and how not the prime necessarily be extended, but the post prime? Because those guys, it wasn't that long ago that those guys would be headhunting for championships and like bouncing around trying to find their way on. That era is not that long ago, but it seems like maybe we're hitting this next stage between the things we know medically and conditioning and diet and all that stuff. It's extending it.
Yeah, I think
guys. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say I think the game has become more skill driven, and so like back in the day, you could be an athlete and your athleticism is going to get you through everything. You just talked the stuff about Russ. Once his athleticism and explosiveness is gone, he's not a great passer. He can't shoot, but he can dribble. He can defend, but his defense is, athletically driven. So for a guy like LeBron, who's so smart in picking his spots, finding his spots, DeMar DeRozan getting better at finding, being an intermediate shooter. CP3, he knows how to get to all of his spots. He can pass, he can dribble. A great leader, has all those intangibles. Obviously, with Steph and shooting, you see how much and how important the three-point shooting's become. As you're seeing people come into the league now, if a Dell Curry could last in that league so long, a Sam Perkins could play just by being a spot-up shooter for so long. Now, if you can shoot, you can play a lot longer. And if you're smart, you can play a lot longer. And then, of course, all the things you were saying about science and being able to take care of your body. LeBron, of course, is notorious for doing all of those things. CP3, maybe not as notorious, but he's also not a person that you're going to find at the club until 3 a.m. every night during the season. So very, very, it's just seeing CP3 do his thing, I'm just happy he's not breaking down. I did want him to win a ring, but you could also see that he's like his slowing down was what hurt them in that finals because he couldn't get up 30 without Booker doing his thing. So
yeah, I think if I was the Suns, I would be resting because they're so far ahead right now. I would be resting CP3 as much as possible because the last few years he's really broken down in the playoffs in a way that's been hard. But between, like you guys were saying, between science, players knowing how to take care of themselves, the league is fundamentally different, right? The value of the 3-point shot and shooting, because shooting is literally the last thing anyone can still do. Like you could get someone who's 65 out there, not in an NBA game, but you can get some old guy out there and he can still.
You gonna make another run at it, Josh?
No, man. No. If I was 6'11", yeah, but no. But like when I remember as a kid when Bernard King, the Nick Great, he blew out his knee, he blew out his ACL, and he was the first guy I remember coming back from an ACL surgery and having any kind of career after that. Now, yeah, you blow out your ACL, it's awful, but everyone expects you to come back in like 10 to 12 months. And it's just a different, it's just different. And, Tom Brady's 45.
Yeah.
Right. Like I remember we were talking what's going to happen to KD. And you read all those articles, Rudy Gay, and how this is what Rudy Gay was doing before the Achilles. This is what Rudy Gay is doing after the Achilles. I forget I don't know if Isaiah Ryder, if he had an Achilles, but they were talking about like what's going to happen post Achilles with KD. And KD's still explosive because you're going to retain some amount of explosiveness, but he's not as explosive. But the big thing is KD can shoot. KD's 6'11". KD can dribble. He's still going to be a player in this league, even if he's not as explosive, because you can try to defend him, but when he rises up, and think about last year, they were a toe box away from going to the finals because
I think about it all the time.
Just
I think about it regularly.
Got a clean look.
Yeah. No, Durant's a great example because I don't know, 30-ish years ago, Durant's had like 3 to 5 injuries that would have ended a guy's career a generation ago. Really, he's and because the foot, the Achilles, he wouldn't be coming back, and he's coming back, and he's still one of the top players in the world. Remarkable player.
Yeah.
So back to the trades because we got way down a rabbit hole. Any trades that caught your eye that you feel like either move the needle for this year or maybe in the future that were of impact? I joked about the Porzingis trade. I can't think of a more nothing trade than that trade, to be honest with you. I don't think that did anything for anyone.
Like, get him out of here.
They took back Davis Bertans to get off of Porzingis's contract.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I know, so like I said, I think that's another contract. Any other like fringe pieces or I can't get into what the Trailblazers are doing really, but whatever.
I think that's the trade, the Trailblazers. Dame is saying all these things. He wants to be a Blazer for life. You guys are wanting to do whatever, and then you trade the second best player or his sidekick on the team, and now you're just looking at him like, what's happening? What's next? And so. For the offseason, because obviously the trade deadline's passed. What's going to happen with Portland? What's going to happen with Dame? People thought he was going to come to the LA, maybe the Lakers, maybe the Clippers. Where is he going? Are they going to trade him? Is he going to demand a trade? So nothing impacting this season, but for from the trade deadline, that trade, I was shocked. Like, wow.
The Knicks will do everything in their power to overpay for Dame.
Well,
I guarantee it.
A couple of things like off what you guys said, and it might be Dame related, it might not be. The question about Dame is small guards in their early 30s. We were just talking about longevity, but small guards in their early 30s, it's not a good track record. CP3 is the exception on that one. But the one trade that I kind of went, was when Miami did their little trade with OKC to lift the protection off of their 23 draft pick. first round draft pick to 25. So this is like real in the weeds stuff. I'm sorry, gang, but
Mhm.
now
No, do it.
the Heat now can trade their draft pick before the draft this year.
Oh,
Okay. In a package where they couldn't have previously. So, this means that they're in a position maybe to go big cat fishing again, or big cat
Right.
hunting rather, in a way that they haven't been, because, they're not doing that by accident, I don't think. They're too good. They're too good an organization.
Right. Well, yeah, it could just be that it may be without a specific target in mind. You may be right that they may just be adding the arsenal to be able to pull something. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see if I'm fascinated to see what happens with Zion. That's the piece that I'm fascinated to see. Like, first of all, who knows if we'll see him again? If he does come back and wants out, which I bet he will, there's going to be teams that can't help themselves but chase after him. And that either is going to be brilliant or a disaster, but there will be no in between.
Right.
Yeah, that's a scary situation, because New Orleans, like Cincinnati Bengals, notoriously cheap organization, right? They share the same medical staff with the Saints. That's like a little surprising. Football is not basketball here, gang.
Do they really? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So I know the Knicks are the Knicks. Nick's gonna Nick, but I would really like to see, Zion in public, not even on a basketball court, before I trade for him.
Oh, I would agree with that, but Josh, I'm telling you something. I know this in the depths of my soul. If the Knicks can get Zion, they will, and they will give whatever it takes, and they will do it like they'll waive medicals.
RJ Barrett.
Well, no, I think they want Cam, RJ, and Zion. I think they want to.
Okay.
I really do. I think they just want to put together that team and then just
Coach
surround
K
them with
coming
Kentucky
up.
shooters. That's the plan. That's the master plan in New York, man. But I don't know.
Zion, if he comes back and he's not 400 pounds, that would be a blessing.
Yeah,
Zion's down in
and
New
that
Orleans.
really is the thing.
Eating.
I mean, like Charles Barkley defied it, but like other than him, like somebody needs to. And Barkley actually would be a good person to talk to Zion, right? Like, because Barkley did eventually shed the weight, and it significantly impacted the arc of his career, and constantly talks about how he needed to get his shit together like that,
Yeah, well, mean, that's one of my favorite. That's probably my second favorite Moses Malone story, right? Moses was his mentor when Barkley was the rookie over in Philly, and he was with him one night, and he was complaining Barkley, and Moses, who almost, I never heard him talk almost ever. Moses, like, it's because you're fat, and Barkley started sobbing, but it got, it was like.
Moses didn't care.
Yeah, but we got these guys like Zion, we got Porzingis, Embiid, we got these guys who we've never really seen those skill sets in those size bodies, and it's a little spooky sometimes. Right. Like, all those guys have major injuries. That's going to circle back around. That's why you got to do that Simmons to Harden trade, because Embiid is like.
No, well, that's why they have to. How long's that clock? It's also why they're not going to get that. Embiid's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt.
Man, and I went down. You'll get a kick out of this. I went down to UMass Amherst to see Embiid's first game. Yeah, so his first preseason game when he actually played, and it was because it was against the Celtics, and it was a home game for the Sixers because Julius went to UMass Irving, right? And Embiid comes out, and he hits his first 3-pointers. And I'm like, no, this isn't his game. No way. And you know what? That's his game.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Embiid. I do. I love Embiid. I don't want me to be right. Like, he's and that's the other thing about him and Giannis. Like, him and Giannis are two of the most delightful dudes like ever. Like, I think they're delights. Yeah. But like, Embiid's gonna get hurt. It just is. And then Harden did that thing. Harden did that thing where he, as his habits are wont, as you were pointing out, He let himself get out of shape at an age where you can't do that anymore, then got further injured, and now is going to have a hell of a time ever getting that back again. And Philly better get it now, because who knows? And then you're going to give Harden $50 million a year in the offseason? Woo.
For 5 years.
Listen, that to me is the biggest Nets win. It's not that they got Simmons, great. It's not that they got a shooter that they could use in Curry or Andre Drummond's corpse to play big man or whatever. It's that they avoided having to deal with the decision and fallout of how to sign or not sign Harden. They don't have to. It's something they don't have to consider. And I cannot imagine that contract ages well. So Philly better get it now, you know?
Yeah. Makes it more palatable for sure. You win a championship. Oh, we've got money to spend. Let's do it.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we've gone long. I could do this for a really long time. I hope you both come back and we'll talk more NBA. I know, Josh, usually we're going to talk comics, but you know.
Hey, can I ask you a comic book question before we head out?
Means.
All right. Best Batman Valentine's Day love affair. Batman and the Catwoman or Batman and the Joker? You make the call.
He's got light hair. I did not.
Man.
That was not the curve I saw coming. He's sending us home.
Oh my god.
Hey, Buns, real quick. Who's your favorite superhero?
My favorite superhero?
Yeah.
Wolverine.
Wolverine. It's an excellent
I heal
choice.
fast.
I find no criticisms. I heal fast. All right, gents. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to see you, Bun.
All right, y'all.
Good night.
Yes, sir. Nice meeting you. Absolutely.